dummy. All right. We are live. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the show. We've got one viewer already. This week, I know that I can't see myself on camera, so that has, an upside and a downside. But whatever. This is something we can't change, or I can't figure out how to change. I've tried various different things, and it won't change. But I'm guessing other people, maybe they're distracted by seeing themselves in sort of a mirror image, and it confounds them, and they complain and they change it. Anyway, tonight, man, I cannot believe. I don't know how long we're going to run with this. I have so much stuff. I have so many things, and some long clips. A couple of, like, when I say long, I'm talking about 5+ minutes clips of stuff that's pretty important to know. But for anyway, we will get to that when we get to that. What's the news? Last week I wanted to say the news was, because I talked about that sports ball guy. Sports ball guy finally bought Bitcoin. He finally became a Bitcoin. Not that he's like a Bitcoiner like me, Bitcoiner, but he finally decided to pull the trigger and bought some Bitcoin. He didn't say how much he bought, and I didn't ask. But he has at least stuck a toe in the water, which is pretty interesting. And I think he did that shortly after I sent him that article, video of that thing with Exxon mining Bitcoin. And I was trying to find out before the show just how much Bitcoin Exxon has mined so far, but I can't find that figure anywhere. The only publicly available figure is for a different oil company called Marathon Oil, and they have 11,200 Bitcoin, so it's worth about $450 million at current prices, which is we're hovering around 27, the high 27s, low 28s. I don't know what's going on, but we have so much stuff to cover, so much, like I'm gonna fit it all in. I don't know how much sense it's going to make. Some of you are going to have to sort it out, on your own. But we will go through everything we need to go through, and we will have a chill stream tonight's chill stream. The title of tonight's stream. And by the way, I don't know if you noticed. If you look, or maybe it's down there, whatever. If you look in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, not only am I your host, STFU James, but I am America's most popular anti-Semite. There's First off, I'm probably the only legitimate anti-Semite out there, at least on social media, and I am most certainly the most popular. And I've got some thoughts on this because of story I'm going to show you later. Maybe we should do that now. Maybe we should just go. Maybe we should go do that now. There's a couple of stories recently about the most famous good boy who didn't do nothings ever in the history of the world, Emmett Till. 67 years ago, his worthless life was ended. But the people who run this country and who run the government can't let it go. So let's start in the past and kind of move as we can, as smoothly and in as orderly a fashion as we can to the present. But here, let's talk about 1 minute and 8 seconds that relates to Emmett Till.
The white woman who accused 14-year-old Emmett Till of whistling at her and making sexual advances has died. Those claims made by Carolyn Bryant Dunham led to Till's kidnapping and gruesome murder in 1955. A coroner's office in Louisiana says that she died in hospice care Tuesday night after suffering from cancer. She was 88 years old. Till's kidnapper and murderer became, well, his murder and the kidnapping became a catalyst, as you know, for the civil rights movement when his mother, Mamie Till Mobley, insisted on an open casket funeral after his brutalized body was pulled from that river in Mississippi. Dunham had long insisted that she bore no responsibility for Till's murder, but civil rights activists and others called for her prosecution, accusing her of targeting Till.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so as an aside, I would personally throw George Stephanopoulos into a wood chipper. I would do that. I would volunteer for that duty. But one of the women, not the woman that Emmett Till assaulted, and he did physically put his hands on this woman in the South. But one of the women who was in the store at the time this occurred recently died at 88 years old. And you say, well, you know, how is this news? Not only was there that news item, but, and I tried to download this. YouTube is doing this a lot. There's videos that I want to right click and save the link so I can download them and show them here or spread them elsewhere. And amazingly, those links can't be found. The White House press room had a reaction to the news. The press corps had prearranged questions about the death of this woman, or this woman's finally passing from this earth, and what's the White House reaction, and blah, 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 blah. I noticed that the previous the White House spokesperson, the Caribbean carpet muncher, is gone, and then they don't have the white guy there anymore. They have another, I think there's another black woman, but I think she's more American. I didn't really listen to what she had to say. I just thought, because it was like a minute or so reaction video. I was like, oh, I gotta download this. And I try to download it, and of course, the link cannot be found. So every other link that I put into the little download software finds it right away. That one they could not find. So who cares? So why does it matter? Well, one, Emmett Till is the poster boy for racist America, the original sin that can't be washed away, right? That all of you and your children and your grandchildren will always be responsible for, and there's nothing you can ever do about it. Now, Emmett Till had a father who served in World War II and was executed by the U.S. Army in World War II because Emmett Till's father raped and murdered not one, not two, but three women, three civilians, Italian civilians, as he was deployed to whatever unit he was with, was deployed to Italy, and while everyone else was fighting Germans. Mr. Till was out raping and killing young Italian girls. So apple didn't fall far from the tree. The reason why Emmett Till was where he was is because he was out of control. His mother couldn't control him. She sent them out of Chicago, hoping to put him in a better environment, that he wouldn't come to a gruesome end, but he came to a gruesome end anyway. And you would think, the way and they made a movie about this stupid thing, which the movie was apparently a gigantic flop. This is something the New York Times talks about multiple times a year, every fucking year. You would think every other black person in America died peacefully in their sleep, and Emmett Till was the only person who ever came to a sudden end. So it's, this type of hysteria is typical of the people who run this country and run the world. When you ever read about, like, the Spanish Civil War and how the communists used to dig up the graves of nuns and priests and mutilate the corpses, they would actually do that. They would stand the corpses up and smash them and and chop them with axes and stuff. It was insane stuff. And you go like, why would you do that? Because that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with communists. And this news story that the accuser of Emmett Till, died peacefully in her sleep when civil rights advocates wanted her prosecuted. Prosecuted for what? This idea that you will never, you are not allowed to disrespect them or their causes or their sacred Negroes. And the fact that she died peacefully and not in a prison cell infuriates them. It absolutely infuriates them. They lost that one. So what they want, and this is what they're going to bring to you. I mentioned this story last week about Chicago, about Tuesday in the Hood. What does it look like? Well, I found the video. It's 2 minutes and 11 seconds. I'm going to show you Tuesday in the Hood. And he asked the rhetorical, or the rhetorical question: how do you solve this? I realize that most of you can't solve this, and every solution you think you come up with in terms of solving this involves a huge expenditure of resources that we're not going to have in the future. But here's that story from Chicago. I'm going to call it, Tuesday in the Hood, and I'll see you in 2 minutes and 11 seconds.
First, a gas station confrontation gets turned upside down. The chaotic situation that ended with a woman's SUV on its roof in the middle of the street in Forest Park. It was all caught on camera. An argument, a man dragged and a flipped over SUV, and now a woman in that SUV is charged.
Tia Ewing has a disturbing situation all around. I guess the good thing is nobody was hurt in this.
It's wild, and Forest Park police tell us this video you're about to see helped them piece together exactly what happened, and now a female is in custody.
Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Y'all better go ahead.
This wild video was recorded after an argument started at Jackson Boulevard and Harlem Avenue at the Thornton's gas station Sunday after 3. Jay Mills recorded it all.
Because they was like, they started throwing cuffs and bars. I'm like, it's going to escalate.
He was with his family, and they say the woman behind the wheel of the Ford SUV started hurling homophobic and racial slurs at the two women.
Calling them the N-word and monkeys.
From there, the fight escalated as people were trying to The female driver hits the red van, dragging the man that was with her for several feet. Then this happened. As the SUV fled the gas station, the driver struck a vehicle waiting at the southbound turn signal at Jackson and then flipped over. It was as if nothing happened at all. The driver managed to exit out of the broken window and started laughing. Up close, just how much damage was done. The driver and her male companion were far from done. Like Bonnie and Clyde, they were captured on camera trying to flee from the scene. Forest Park police is only charging Nance. She didn't have a valid driver's license, and now she's charged with felony criminal damage to property, 2 counts of aggravated assault, reckless driving, among other charges. Tia Ewing, Fox 32, Chicago.
So that's Tuesday in the Hood. That's, you go, well, it's Chicago. Listen, this stuff happens everywhere, like 24/7. Things that it's that insane that pop up out of nowhere. They could have destroyed that entire gas station, like lit the whole thing on fire. Like there's all the potential negative outcomes are enormous, and it's like a series of miracles that it wasn't worse. And how you gain control of this, how you take this insane, destructive chaos and turn it into, turn it into civilization is a task that's beyond almost everyone. And the way you do it, of course, is by controlling the resources. When I say, we don't control the police, the courts, or the prisons, there's a reason why that's critically important, because things that destructive, like what do? They're driving an SUV, smashing at the cars. All those people just try to get gas for their car, trying to go pick up their kids at school, trying to get to their job. Maybe that's their only car. You know what I mean? Maybe it's financed. They got a financed car and they got to make a monthly payment. Now they can't use the car because it got smashed. Like, how do you fix that? Who fixes that? How do you address that? You don't, right? Most of you don't. But there has to be a way that stuff like this just doesn't happen. And if it does happen, it happens once, and those people never are allowed to walk this earth again. They leave controlled custody feet first. That's what needs to happen. You cannot have civilization while that stuff is going on. You just can't. It's not possible. That is the most anti-civilizational thing in the world. There's plenty of other ones, but that one particularly reminded me of back in the days, when I drove taxis at night in New York. So the chaos, and the black people love that shit. They fucking eat that shit up, and they love living that way. That's exciting to them. They never know what's going to happen next. It's joyous fun, and somebody else always cleans up the mess. Why is that? Why does this happen? The reason why is because the fucking money is broken. We have central banks. Central banks, as Karl Marx said, are critical to the establishment of world communism. And every country on the face of this earth has a central bank. They're not all controlled by the Rothschilds. I don't think Syria, Iran, and North Korea are controlled by the Rothschilds, but they all have central banks. And you might think, well, what do central banks do? Boy, am I glad you asked. I'm glad you asked. Here's a 1-minute explainer on what central banks actually do.
Central banks are the most important of all economic institutions. They control the money supply by changing interest rates. This allows them to control inflation.
An increase in bank rate is necessary because it is unlikely that inflation will return to target without it.
And give central banks a degree of independence from politicians. When the central bank changes base rates, it sets the interest rate for commercial banks. Higher interest rates reduce credit by making it more expensive, which in turn reduces the money supply. Lower interest rates, however, expand credit because credit is cheaper, thereby increasing the money supply and inflation. In addition, central banks function as the lender of last resort in a financial system. This means if the entire banking system is going bust, banks can always borrow from a country's central bank to cover their short-term liabilities.
So, very simply, banks control the booms and busts of the economy, and when things go bust and you're desperate, you have to borrow money from the central banks, and then you owe them that debt that you'll never get out of, right? They're the ones that create this, and they control the politicians. All of the politicians, including we got a bunch of stuff. We got Texas Governor, what's his name? Abbott. I don't know what his first name is. This hasn't happened yet, but I saw the story, and it was pretty interesting. It's kind of like the previous one from Chicago, but worse. Understand, you live in a world controlled by forces you don't see and you cannot influence. Quick story, 50 seconds, going down to Texas. Come on.
The verdict of the jury is as follows. The verdict of the jury: we, the jury, find the defendant Daniel Perry guilty of the offense of murder as alleged in count 1 of the indictment signed by the foreperson.
Okay. The BLM riots of 2020 down in Texas, some dindu was walking around with an AK pattern rifle, an AK-47, which is legal to do. You're allowed to open carry in Texas. You're just not allowed to actually point the gun at people in Texas. That's brandishing, and that's what this guy was doing. They caught him. He's on video multiple times pointing this AK rifle at various different people in cars. That white guy, I don't know what he was doing out, but he got mixed up with this. He saw a guy with an AK. White dude happened to be a concealed carry holder, takes out his concealed carry pistol, shoots the good boy in the chest, probably because the good boy didn't have any ammo in the rifle because he spent it all on grape soda. And, you know, that was sort of that. And this was 3 years ago during the BLM riots, and it all gets forgotten. But that individual, okay, who was faced with a lethal threat, an AK pattern rifle, okay, responded with lethal force himself, and happened to prevail in that encounter. But you've done the unforgivable. You have extinguished the life of a good boy who didn't do nothings, who's just about to turn his life around, and happens to be a foot soldier for BLM. So this guy was arrested, charged with murder, okay, tried and found guilty. Now, this has roiled up everybody in Texas. So the governor says he's going to pardon him. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But this guy still, he's probably been in jail since his arrest. And he's probably going to be in jail until the pardon, of course. And this is the world you live in. Texas is not Texas. That the moment this guy was arrested and charged with murder, everyone involved in that arrest, the district attorney, the chief of police, everyone, they all should have been fired by the governor. If the governor really had autonomy, if he wasn't in fact a puppet of people you don't see, he would have fired all those people. Well, firstly, that never would have happened. Okay, you know, you wouldn't have had a district attorney or a prosecutor think, here's a licensed, you know, concealed carry holder who got into a street conflict with someone who already had their gun out, right? Who has a long gun, and he managed to prevail. Yeah, I think I'll charge that guy with murder. If that is not the most racially motivated prosecution in the history of racially motivated prosecutions, I don't know what is. That's the world you live in. So when some insane chaos happens, and you may not think it's going to happen to you, but you don't know where this stuff is going to go off. You never know when it's going to kick off. If you find yourself in conflict with one of these people, and you happen to win, your prize is probably going to be, you know, I mean, if this guy's lucky, he'll get out in a year, but he's going to spend a year in the big house as a racist murderer, which means he's probably going to spend the entire year in solitary or segregated confinement. And it's not going to be good. So you need to understand the hellscape that you live in. It's worse. It's far, far, far worse than you think it is. And it's only going to get worse still. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. All right. So what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? We got Andrew Tate. That's right. I forgot about Andrew Tate. Let's talk about the future. CBDCs. This guy is a British dude. I don't know who he is. I think it's the first or second time I'm showing him. He's kind of a shit corner, but it was a little short point. Going from the past, right? We went from Emmett Till, we went to BLM riots, we went to the role of central banks in your life. Now, what does the future look like? The future looks like CBDCs.
CBDCs are getting closer with every passing day, and the country leading the way is none other than China. Now, just recently, China announced the latest stage of its central bank digital currency pilot, and that is that from next month, all civil servants in the city of Changshu will be paid using digital yuan. That is the CBDC that the People's Bank of China has been trialing since 2020. That's right. This trial has been going on for a while now, and it has to be said that uptake hasn't been great. It doesn't seem like Chinese citizens are in any hurry to adopt the digital yuan. And this is something that we've seen in other countries like Nigeria, who have also been trialing CBDCs. However, don't let a lack of adoption fool you. Governments and central banks will be pressing ahead with CBDCs, and we are going to see them in most countries within the next few years.
All right, I don't know if we're going to see them in the next few years, but they're definitely coming. The fact that you don't want to see them is not going to stop them at all. In the chat, Virgil Doc Purple Heart. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the show. So they're going to control your money digitally, and that is not going to be good. They will make it disappear when they want to make it disappear. They will make it expire if you don't spend it fast enough. It's going to be about as bad can be. What could we possibly do? Oh, those evil Chinese. Oh, those authoritarian Chinese. Oh, we hate them. We hate them. Can we do something to stop them? Well, your government's going to tell you that it's doing something to stop them, but not really doing something to stop the Chinese at all. This next clip, this guy's name is Andrew Flushy. He's an attorney in Virginia. He has a YouTube channel, a very good YouTube channel that talks about how you should never talk to the police. He has good legal advice, and he's so he's a Southern dude, Southern accent. He's got a white shirt with a bow tie, and that's a little bit of a gimmick. You know what I mean? He wears proper ties in real life, but it's his internet show. You know, his YouTube show. He does the bow tie thing, but he's going to explain to you the what's called the Restrict Act. And I want you to think about what you just heard about China. And this is like I said, a longish clip. It's 5 minutes, 25 seconds. But there's a lot of important information in here that you need to know, because this is going to happen whether you like it or not.
You may think that the Restrict Act is just about banning TikTok, but if it passes, it gives the Secretary of Commerce broad power to pass any rule that she deems appropriate for a huge array of activities that you and I both engage in. I'm very concerned that the Restrict Act gives the US government massive police power with no citizen accountability, just like some other countries that you may have heard of. So let's talk about how all Americans are at risk of going to prison, whether or not you use TikTok, Facebook, or a VPN. Maybe I'm the only person in the United States who's never used TikTok. Frankly, I think it is a Chinese weapon that's designed to dumb us down and simultaneously feed data back to the Chinese government about how Americans think and behave. And if the government here wants to ban TikTok, they should do it. Pass a law that bans TikTok, that says TikTok is banned. But don't pass a law like the Restrict Act that doesn't even once mention TikTok, and instead gives sweeping power to unelected bureaucrats to put people like you and me in jail. The Restrict Act lets this lady make rules that we have to follow. If we don't follow them, we're subject to fines, asset forfeiture, of course, and imprisonment. Did you vote for her during the last election? Can you vote her out during the next election? Nope. She's an unelected bureaucrat. Sure, you can sue her in federal court, but you'll have to do it in the liberal bastion that is the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. Good luck there. And you'll win against her made-up rules only if you can prove that they violate some provision of the Constitution or other clear statutory rights. But how is it that you can get thrown in jail for using something like TikTok or Facebook? I'm glad you asked, because I read the bill. That's what us lawyers do. The bill says, the Secretary is authorized to and shall take action to identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, or otherwise mitigate, including by negotiating, entering into, or imposing and enforcing any mitigation measure to address any risk arising from any covered transaction by any person.
if that transaction poses an undue or unacceptable risk to the national security of the United States or the safety of a United States person. This bill is about empowering the Secretary of Commerce to identify and to prevent digital threats against the safety of anyone in the United States. If the Secretary needs to identify digital threats that may be happening in the United States or coming across our borders, it stands to reason that she probably needs to monitor all the traffic that's going around the internet and networks here in these United States. And this is where people rightfully say that VPNs are at risk. The penalties section penalizes, among other things, many other things, no person may engage in any transaction or take any other action with intent to evade the provisions of this act, or any regulation, order, direction, mitigation measure, prohibition, or other authorization or directive issued thereunder. Let's say you do some important confidential work from home, and you don't want a bored teenage hacker next door snooping on your internet traffic. So you use a VPN to protect your privacy and maybe that of your clients. Well, that action of using a VPN so your internet traffic is private sure seems like it could be intended to evade rules issued by the Secretary of Commerce to determine what technologies you're using on your computer. You see how simple VPN could be interpreted as a violation of the Restrict Act. Now, you may not use a VPN. You may not even know what a VPN is. And you may not be doing business with the listed foreign adversaries, such as China, Russia, or Iran. But what about the multinational companies that you do patronize? For example, Amazon does ample business in and with China, as we all know. What if the Secretary of Commerce wants to ensure that Amazon is not doing illicit activities with our foreign adversary over in China, and so Amazon is required to turn over all sorts of customer data to the Secretary of Commerce? Your data is now in the hands of a lady you've never even seen before. And the punishment for violating any rule made by the unelected Secretary of Commerce can be extreme. The Secretary may impose the following civil penalties on a person for each violation by that person of this act or any regulation, order, direction, mitigation measure, prohibition, or other authorization issued under this act. 1. A fine of not more than $250,000. A person who willfully commits an unlawful act shall upon conviction be fined not more than $1 million, or if a natural person may be imprisoned for not more than 20 years or both. And don't forget forfeiting your assets to good old Uncle Sam, because he needs more assets. Any property, real or personal, tangible or intangible, used or intended to be used in any manner to commit or facilitate a violation or attempted violation shall be subject to forfeiture to the United States. The Restrict Act isn't just about TikTok. It could affect all Americans who use the internet or frankly any digital device, including even just a high schooler doing a paper about ancient Chinese culture. But don't worry, this is a bipartisan bill. It has support from both Democrats and Republicans who all want to take away our liberties. What could possibly go wrong? To find out more about protecting yourself from the police tracking you, check out this next video. I'll see you over there. And remember, don't talk to the police.
So that's Andrew Flusci. Good guy, funny guy, smart guy, a patriot, although a normie. So right now, Congress is going to vote, and they're almost certainly going to pass this Restrict Act. And the language in there that he read to you, any property, tangible or intangible. Bitcoin is digital property. It's intangible, is subject to forfeiture. This is the anti-Bitcoin bill. It doesn't have a fucking thing to do with TikTok, okay? As Flusci notes, both Republicans and Democrats, because there is no difference, the Uniparty wants this, and the Uniparty is going to get this. And the language of the bill is so vague. Any transaction which may endanger any U.S. person. What the fuck? Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? This is beyond ridiculous. What if you could go to prison for 20 years because somebody says, "Hey, can I borrow your phone? My battery died," and they do something on your phone, right? You go, "Yeah, sure. Here, go ahead, send an email or make a phone call," right? But he's involved in a transaction with, Iranian Secret Service or whatever bullshit story they make up. And then next thing you know, you're facing 20 years. Think it can't happen? Well, remember, the dude in Texas who's a licensed concealed carry holder, drives into a violent mob. A guy points an AK-47 at him. This guy manages to get his gun out and drop the AK-47 dude before he gets dropped buy the AK-47 dude. And that individual, because he's got the wrong skin color, gets arrested for murder. You do not live in a land of rules. I've said the problem with constitutions is that they do not allow for defense of the Constitution from domestic enemies. It's the internal enemies that are the greatest enemies of democracy. There are no foreign adversaries that could ever come close to us. The other thing Flucci says is, I think TikTok is Chinese spyware. TikTok is not Chinese spyware. We're going to prove that in a minute. But, you know, if China wanted to take over the United States, they wouldn't give a fuck how we think. They don't want to know, oh, how do we get into the mind of those round-eyed devils? They don't give a shit. Conquerors don't want to understand you. They just want to take all your shit and make you a slave. So, and mind you, now the Chinese are never going to conquer anything. It's not going to happen. We've got to go to China now. We got to go from Virginia. We're going to go to China. I got two different Chinese things. One of which is this woman on Instagram who's freaking hilarious. I can't even know what her name is, but I follow her on Instagram because she's funny as fuck. But she's going to explain TikTok to you. She noticed something about TikTok that, yeah, that's really interesting. So TikTok, is it really Chinese spyware?
You know how I know that TikTok isn't controlled by the Chinese government? When I was completing my profile for TikTok's creator marketplace, I have to choose my spoken languages. What the heck is Chinese Simplify and Chinese Traditional? Any native Chinese speakers will know that Simplify and Traditional refer to the writing systems. Spoken languages, on the other hand, include Mandarin, Cantonese, Hokkien, Hakka, Shanghainese, and many, many more. They differentiate between French and Canadian French, but didn't bother to include Cantonese, which is spoken by more than 82 million people around the world. The US Congress doesn't need to worry about TikTok because obviously the people that run this app has no idea what's going on in China.
So the people who run TikTok have no idea what's going on in China and have no idea. It's only Westerners or Americans that say Chinese Traditional, Chinese Simplified, because the Chinese know they don't break out those categories. So who created TikTok? You know, was it the Pentagon or was it the CIA or was it the NSA? It's some kind of spookware. It's not feeding intel back to Beijing about the retard social media habits of Americans, because the fucking motherfuckers in Beijing don't give a fuck about what you do or don't do. As long as you keep buying cheap shit from China, they're fucking happy. But this woman noticed this one little thing, and it kind of shows that whoever put TikTok together was not Chinese. It was Westerners who put this together. Okay, so everybody knows that TikTok is Chinese spyware, and everyone is fucking wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And it's in things like this tiny little detail that's much more telling than it would appear. Okay, we're gonna do. All right, we're gonna go a little more we're gonna go a little further into China. Here's a guy with there's a Chinese guy. I don't know who he is. I saw him on. Did I see him on Instagram? Smart guy who speaks very good English, and he's going to explain China to you, how China works and whether or not China poses a threat to America's global hegemony.
The pundits started to panic just because of a shitpost by Putin. Like, when can you stop listening to that dumbass bunker bitch? You can mark my words, the Chinese yuan will never become an international currency, let alone a main one. Why? Because China doesn't want it to happen. Putin might want it to happen, but Xi doesn't. Here's why. Firstly, you should know that China's wealth is concentrated in a group of crazy rich people. They have wealth beyond your wildest dream. Okay, you might think their closets are filled with Hermes or Chanel. No, they're filled with cash from the floor to the fucking ceiling. Just like rich people elsewhere, they are assholes with shady businesses. But what makes them different from the American rich assholes is that they don't want to stay in the country that made them rich. Weird, huh? Their entire life pursuit is to fucking run, or at least help their kids run. Folks in China even use the English word run to specifically refer to the action of leaving the country. So the rich people want to leave, but the only thing that holds them back is the fact that their wealth is yuan denominated. You know what I mean? They can't spend their money elsewhere. China doesn't let them sell their yuan beyond a certain quota. So rich people can only spend a tiny share of their wealth outside China. Now imagine what will happen if yuan becomes an international currency that's freely exchangeable. These mega rich people will be out of their birdcage. They'll swarm into luxury properties outside China like zombies chasing meat. And back home, the yuan-denominated assets will just collapse. The currency, the stocks, the real estate will all turn into worthless shit in a matter of weeks. You think the CCP will let that happen? No way. You can be rich, but your ass belongs to the state. Okay, now you might want to ask why rich people want to leave China. Well, that's a long story. I'll have to talk about it next time. But in the meanwhile, please stare at this graph carefully and tell me, do you really think Chinese...
So, that guy, I don't know how he knows what he knows, but he certainly is a guy who knows what he's talking about. There's no doubt he's been inside these rooms where he's seen a closet full of money, not a bag full of money, not a suitcase full of money, but like this closet door behind me. Like, think of a closet, right? Floor to ceiling, 8 feet high, stacked full of money. How deep? 4 feet deep, 6 feet wide, stacked full of money. That's Chinese money, right? That's how the Chinese keep their wealth, stacked in cash. Okay. Now you know why China banned Bitcoin, or they tried to ban Bitcoin, right? And now you know why they're desperate to push their CBDC on everyone. They're going to start with government workers, and they're going to push it to everyone else. They absolutely will control every movement they make. So when people say China's going to take over world markets, they're not going to do that for the specific reason that that guy articulated. Okay. If the super rich in China can sell all their yuan for dollars or euros or gold or whatever, they will, and then they will flee the country, okay? And all of China will collapse. And the Chinese are stupid in a lot of ways, but they ain't fucking suicidal, all right? They're going to hang on to power until the very, very, very end. Just like in America, the central bankers in America will hang on to power until the very end. There are a lot of naive Bitcoiners who think that, oh, Bitcoin and the US dollar can coexist together in happy harmony and blah, 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 blah. And it doesn't need to be, an adversarial relationship. But I assure you, it needs to be an adversarial relationship, because you are not dealing with decent people who play by the rules. You are not dealing with people, decent people, who play by the rules. So what are we going to do? It's Michael Saylor. I do a lot of Michael Saylor, but the anti-Bitcoin, I'll give you another example of Bitcoin and government and the American control apparatus, I don't know what you want to call it, and their propaganda efforts. A lot of you might know this guy. His name is Bill Maher, and I remember him as a stand-up comedian in the 80s. He wasn't funny in the fucking 80s. Even now, I don't watch his show because I don't have a TV, but he's not funny today. But let's hear what Bill Maher and his fucking Algonquin round table of fucking guests think about Bitcoin.
In 2021, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies used the energy equivalent of Argentina, the entire country, to mine gas at zero-sum bullshit. Like, I don't know how to express how utterly useless
and
this
I
is.
can't express how mad I am at the younger generations for embracing this.
Bitcoin is digital gold on a big tech monetary network. It's the hardest money on earth. It's an institutional grade safe haven asset. It's gold without all the imperfections of gold on a digital monetary network that moves at the speed of light that you can program to do 1 million transactions a second. Why would you want it? For the same reason that you want to run electric power to your city, or you would want to run running water to your building, because civilization is based on clean energy, clean water, clean communications, clean money.
Okay, so Michael Saylor again. Not being too esoteric at that point. I don't know who that guest was on Bill Maher, but he said that Bitcoin uses more energy than the country of Argentina. And then but they don't talk about Argentina. They don't talk about the official inflation rate in the nation of Argentina is 80%. That's the official rate. The real rate is probably like 250%. So they will, and he says Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, but it means Bitcoin. The first thing out of their mouth is their top priority. This guy wants to shit all over Bitcoin. Oh, Bitcoin uses more energy than Argentina, making it somehow immoral, right? Not mentioning that Argentina is suffering economic collapse and has been in a state of economic collapse for years, and people are desperate and struggling down there. That part he's not going to mention. He's not going to mention how the peso is devalued and how the IMF loaned Argentina $54 billion to discourage the use of cryptocurrencies. They don't mean cryptocurrencies. They mean one thing and only one fucking thing, and that's Bitcoin. Because everything else is a shit coin. It's a scam. And then Bill Maher, oh, I'm so disappointed in the younger generation that they embrace this. So, you know, that the debt slaves are looking for an escape, that the debt slaves are looking to not be debt slaves, to try and end this. You know, Bill Maher, he's so disappointed. He's so, oh, it hurts his heart. Fucking piece of shit. All right, we're gonna go back to Texas.
Panic just because of a shit post by Putin. Like, when can you stop listening to that?
You're not a Texas Chinese guy. We're gonna go back to Texas. We gotta go to, where are we gonna go? Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, who I now know will never ever be president of the United States. But yeah, let's listen to Ted Cruz for about a minute or so.
China hates Bitcoin for the same reason Elizabeth Warren hates Bitcoin, because they both want to control it. I'm a Bitcoin investor personally. I like Bitcoin for the same reason that the Chinese Communist government doesn't like Bitcoin. They don't like Bitcoin and they banned it because they can't control it. Bitcoin is clearly the alpha. They want a centralized ledger that the government has complete visibility into and complete control over. And I think that is profoundly dangerous. I don't want the government having control over your finances. And so I hope we see growing resistance to a CBDC. I think the analogy of digital gold is powerful, particularly when you have irresponsible politicians in Washington that spend money like drunken sailors. Which is actually not fair to the sailors, because at least they're spending their own money.
So Ted Cruz, he calls himself a Bitcoin investor. That's the wrong way to think about it. He's not really a proper Bitcoiner, because an investor, you put your money in and then you take your money out. The idea that, you know, this is a temporary thing. You don't understand. Bitcoin was designed to destroy the US dollar and every other fiat currency. Whether you understand that or you don't understand that, Bitcoin is the apex predator in the world of money like nothing else. Now, the fact that Ted Cruz owns Bitcoin means he will never be president of the United States. He will never, ever be president of the United States. That's it. His fate is sealed. No matter how much he grovels in front of them, that's over for him. Now, the next video I'm going to show, because Bitcoin's about slaying your heroes. Remember, it's rules, not rulers. This is a longer video. This one's 6 minutes. 6 minutes, almost 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 52 seconds. But this is the, this comes from Swan Bitcoin, which I show their stuff a lot. Whoever puts these videos together is killing it. And I've messaged them that exact thing. Here's why we're going to win, and whatever dumb shit you believe in is not going to win.
Fiat has succeeded in keeping the majority of people working harder and harder for less and less. It continues to shortchange wage earners of their most precious resource, their time. But what will happen when people stand up and say no to the hypocrisy and the inequality a system of easy money has created?
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wearing a designer gown emblazoned with the words "Tax the Rich."
Photos emerged showing the governor unmasked and in close quarters with a large group.
Nancy Pelosi is under fire after surveillance video shows her at a hair salon getting a blowout and not wearing a face mask.
Hypocrisy.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz jetting off to Cancun during an unprecedented crisis in his state.
Privilege for me, but not for thee.
Hey, dirt people, give up your cars, heat sources, and steel buildings while we wait in the lounge sipping Cristal as the G6 gets gassed up.
Few things are more frustrating to working class Americans than one set of rules for elites and another for everyone else.
Climate change is real.
Here's U.S. Senator and climate crusader Elizabeth Warren making headlines in 2020 after exiting a private jet and apparently ducking behind a staffer to avoid the cameras. And here's climate czar John Kerry, who lectures the public on putting an end to fossil fuels, while it's been reported his family private jet released 300 metric tons of carbon since Biden took office.
It's the only choice for somebody like me who is traveling the world to win this battle.
Nothing riles up the electorate like politicians who don't practice what they preach.
Their faces are open, they get to smile for all of the cameras, and all of the working class people serving them have to be faceless, They are masked.
Now, I just had my hair washed. I don't wear a mask when I'm washing my hair. Do you wear a mask when you're washing your hair?
As I said, really from the moment I sat on the plane, I began really second-guessing that decision.
But what about central bankers? Federal Reserve Bank presidents are not elected officials, which is perhaps why San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly wasn't concerned with how tone-deaf her recent comments on inflation came off.
You know, I have to say that I don't like the pain of inflation anymore, but I don't find myself in a space where I have to make trade-offs because I have enough. Many, many Americans have enough.
She sold all 70 stocks they owned December 28th of 21. This is literally a few days before the top. These are people that are voting for programs that cause asset price inflation while they own these assets.
But what about the rest of America? Let them eat cake? Well, according to a Bloomberg op-ed, let them eat lentils to beat inflation.
We just got to restock the ice cream right for Easter Sunday because we were, shall we say, enjoying chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here.
From central bankers to House speakers to state governors, hypocrisy among those in power seems to have become more shameless since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Not only are they breaking their own rules, but they're telling us the negative impacts of their policies could actually be good for us.
The more we see of the just rank hypocrisy of these standard bearers of this particular worldview, I think it just hastens the return to sanity.
As the concentration of power grows, it further separates Washington insiders from the reality of everyday working life. And one of the biggest contributors to this is a system of manipulated money.
In much of the Western world, we have so much price propaganda, and it's driven by who barons declare the winner of the U.S. election, which is the Fed and all the other central banks around the world, just printing money and creating a quintillionaire class.
The Cantillon effect is the phenomenon that describes how those closest to the Fed's money printer benefit to a greater extent than those further away, and how political incentives become less and less about accountability and more about re-elections than anything else. And when the money printer goes burr, it perpetuates and compounds wealth inequality. It benefits corporate executives who are able to use easy money for stock buybacks, and ultimately benefits short-term focused politicians.
So people like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos are in this lovely situation of paying less in taxes as a share of their income than the poor people who live in that same state. I think people aren't living their values.
If people are no better than their incentives and the actual supply of money can be changed by a small group of unelected fiat overlords who stand to benefit from such a change, do the math. It's no surprise they might want to keep the current system as is. And then consider Bitcoin, a system of rules with no rulers. If no one has the ability to expand or manipulate the supply of money, then government officials would have to be more accountable to the promises they make and be held to a higher standard than when they're close to the monetary spigot. Maybe then societies could finally experience true financial inclusion and a chance to minimize the wealth gap.
Once these fiat dark ages end, and that's what we're witnessing right now, this is what you're seeing on the cable news, this is what you're seeing in the hysterics on Twitter. Once that dies, there's a great opportunity for the ordinary person to build something new.
Fiat has succeeded in keeping the majority of people working harder and harder for less and less. It continues to shortchange wage earners of their most precious resource, their time. But what will happen when people stand up and say no to the hypocrisy and the inequality a system of easy money has created?
If you keep the poor people divided, they can't wake up long enough to do what I did and read about how money works. Because if they do that, we got big trouble, right? Then the slaves will wake up. You don't want to deprogram the slaves. So you have to convince the slaves that it's not the monetary system's fault that you're broke. It's not the monetary system's fault that you continue to work for a set number of dollars and the price of houses just keep going up and up and up. It's not the monetary system's fault. It's the white man's fault, or the black man's fault, or the Asian people's fault. Someone else's fault. Because if the poor people all fight each other, they can't wake up long enough to look up and go, oh, there's not actually that many of them.
There has never been any political worldview or any fucking cultural worldview that has expressed its ideas as slickly as that presentation you just saw. That was slick as fuck. As far as propaganda goes, if you just evaluate it on the level of propaganda, it's fucking mind-blowingly good. This is why we're gonna win. This is why we're gonna fucking destroy all of this shit. We're gonna burn it all to the ground. Now, these Bitcoiners are naive. Oh, maybe, you know, once people stand up, people are not going to wake up. People are not going to stand up. That's never going to happen. People do what is easy and comfortable and that they're accustomed to. They don't wake up and suddenly make instantly good, snap fucking judgments about super complex things. They just don't fucking do it. Okay. When people wake up is when the money breaks, when the money stops, when every day an SUV flips over in the middle of the fucking intersection and some guy caught in the middle of a riot goes to jail for fucking murder. When that's every day, everywhere, and you can't even put food on the table or keep lights on where you fucking live, well, that's when shit's gonna change. But not until that happens. It's not going to be a waking up. It's not going to be a raising of consciousness or any other fucking bullshit. But it's videos like this, Swan Bitcoin, like I said, killing it in the propaganda department, killing it with that. I've said in the past, and I said, and the future is going to look like what I call consensus government. I don't know that that's going to be the name of it, but I said it's going to look like communism. It's going to look like democracy. And parts of that video you just saw were kind of communistic, right? Criticizing the elites in power and the wealth inequality and the criticism of the money system in general, okay? That's what Karl Marx did, and Marxism took over the world, right? And the entire world is Marxist because Marxism, the fifth plank of Marxism is central banking. Without central banks, there is no Marxism. There is no left-wing control of everything. It just doesn't exist. But if I can make you starving and homeless, okay, then I can do whatever I want to you. If I can decide who gets rich and who has to sleep underneath the fucking park bench, that's massive control. Better control than all the fucking armies and the missiles and the bomber planes and the tanks. Better control by far. By far. And that's what central banks have. And they favor the communistical worldview, which is why everything is kind of communistical. And the Restrict Act that Congress is absolutely going to pass for the safety of America, right, is about restricting your ability to do anything, restricting your ability to buy or sell or transact or to do anything without government permission, okay? And it will be, and they specifically designed it for the Secretary of Commerce, an unelected bureaucrat who will be able to throw you in jail for 20 years and fine you $1 million and confiscate your Bitcoin if they can figure out how to do that. This is not going to work for them. This is really going to blow up in their faces. But the Restrict Act is about controlling you as tightly as the Chinese government controls its citizens. Or I got another comment. I have another comment. Judas Flies Chai, the base Persian messenger. Shalom. Shalom, Mr. Flychai. I don't know where you've been the whole show. It's like 59 minutes already. You were probably out smoking a bowl, probably blazing away, not realizing that it was Chillstream night. You have to remember Chillstream night. Okay, one of the last guys you saw in that video was this guy called Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate was kind of an interesting character to me because he actually dated Jordan Peterson's daughter, right? So you know Jordan Peterson, everybody knows Jordan Peterson, Mr. Morality, blah, 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 blah. He had something that Peterson on occasion has had something to do with Bitcoin, or he says he likes the idea, whatever. Peterson had a daughter, and Andrew Tate dated her. And there's a photo of him, of Andrew Tate and this girl together. But Andrew Tate's a bit of a dick, more than a bit of a dick. He presents himself as a kind of like bold truth teller, moral ideal, but he's a kickboxer or MMA guy. They say he had 72 kickboxing matches, and he probably did, except the quality of competition is absolute shit. He's not that good. I've seen people critique his kickboxing videos, the fights he's had. He's very beatable. But they put him in a ring with a guy who sort of halfway knew what he was doing, and Andrew Tate was better. So he won, and they padded his record. They created a record of 72 wins and no losses or something like that. But Andrew Tate was kind of, 2017, he was kind of a thing. You know what I mean? He was kind of sort of a thing. But recently, and I mean relatively recently, like a year or two ago, he got arrested in Romania. I don't know if he's Romanian or what. I think he might be Romanian ethnically, but I think he maybe grew up in England or something. He's got a weird accent. He got arrested in Romania for like improper conduct with underage females. But this piece of video is a bit before that. Another thing I grabbed off of Instagram. But Andrew Tate in the 2016-2017 Bitcoin boom was at the time quite the Bitcoin advocate. Although he has since you know, whatever. I guess his legal troubles, whether he was set up, I don't think he was really set up, but it's tough to set somebody up who's not corrupt to begin with. It's almost impossible. But Andrew Tate made this video, and this video will live on, and people will hear what he has to say and forget what he was doing with some 15-year-old Romanian girl and whatever in Romania. But here's 55 seconds of Andrew Tate on Bitcoin.
You can actually control and own your money. You can actually have your money, right? How else are you going to have it? In cash? And then you got to deal with the inflation. No problem with Bitcoin. No problem. So it fixes a whole bunch of problems, cryptocurrencies. It certainly does. I think a lot of people who are forward-thinking and believe the things I believe in, it's the only logical conclusion. What else are you going to do? Trust a bank? You trust them? There's nothing else to do with it. I'm actually at the point where, although I do own quite a lot of property, I don't want any more. And I keep getting offered nice property deals. And Tristan's like, should we buy this? It's like, no, I don't even trust the Romanian government or the Russian government. I have property in Moscow. I don't even trust the government anymore. I don't even want a property because if I piss the government off, they're just going to take it. I don't own it. They say you own it until you annoy the government, then you don't own it.
This is why Bitcoin is the hardest asset in the world. It cannot be inflated, it cannot be taken from you, it cannot be corrupted. This is why so many people are taking a percentage of their net worth and opting out of the traditional financial system and into Bitcoin.
All right, the last bit, I don't know who the narrator was. Not that many people are taking a share of their net worth and putting into Bitcoin. It's still a fringe thing. It's still very much a fringe thing. And, you know, the plus side of that is that the exchange rate's pretty good. It's only $28,000 for one Bitcoin. The downside of that is, you know, we still have a distance to go before we win. But every 10 minutes, a new block is mined. And that puts us 10 minutes closer to us winning because we're going to fucking win. You're not going to win. You're a bunch of homosexual, Adolf Hitler worshiping fucking retards. You know what I mean? Who don't like Jews and don't like blacks. You are, I do this show for maybe 5 people. Of the 58 subscribers I have, 53 of you, if I could ban you, I would ban You know what I mean? If I could find it, that's why I hope people show up in the chats or just fucking ban them. But that I can't do. So in my mind, I'm doing the show from like maybe 3 to 5 people, and the rest of you deserve really to die starving and homeless in the park. But let's continue down the road where concept-wise, with what Andrew Tate was talking about. Andrew Tate's talking about Bitcoin is the only thing you can really own. If you own property and you piss off the government, then they're going to take your property. So a more articulate, little fuller answer, another video. I think this is also a Swan video about the nature of Bitcoin as property.
You don't actually own real estate. You own a deed from the government that says you own a home. With Bitcoin, you can actually see on the blockchain that you own the Bitcoin. And on top of that, Bitcoin is a better form of money.
Real estate may have been an obvious choice compared to a debasing fiat dollar for people wanting to store their wealth and preserve their purchasing power over the last few decades. But now that we have Bitcoin, we can also see the limitations of real estate. Defects of real estate include tax burdens and maintenance cost. Homes are tied to a specific geographic location. They're not easily subdivided into smaller units. They're not quickly and easily bought and sold without significant broker's fees. They could be subject to government confiscation and natural disasters, and the list goes on. Satoshi Nakamoto created a virtual asset that suffers from none of the defects of this tangible physical asset. It dematerializes property and turns it into information, like Netflix did to Blockbuster and like email did to the fax machine.
So, pretty good argument. That's a coherent argument as to why Bitcoin is superior to real property. A very coherent argument. And the fact that these videos are up on YouTube and people eventually stumble across them, if you're looking for a way out, you're going to find it. You know what I mean? If you're looking for, an alternative to being stuck to where you are, whether you consider yourself a debt slave, don't consider yourself a debt slave. If you think that, that America is a land of opportunity, you have the opportunity to lick the boots of the Jews. You know what I mean? You have the opportunity to beg them to move up, one step higher out of the fucking slime, out of the fucking bottom that you're in. If you beg them enough, if you lick their boots hard enough, they may let you climb one rung of the fucking ladder or 2 rungs of the ladder. But you're going to have to promote their worldview. If you have a light skin, you better be trans. Like you actually have to be a homosexual, cut off your fucking genitals, run around wearing a fucking dress, or it's not going to happen anymore. I mean, back in the days of promoting communist ideology, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and you could be a straight white male and you could get away with that. Those days are done. So you understand what you have to promote. You have to promote drug use. You have to promote pedophilia. You have to promote debt slavery. You have to promote racial tension, racial blame game. You add all of that. You're gonna have to push nonstop, and if you do that publicly, not just on the internet, you have to go to these rallies. You have to show up and do things till someone notices you, and then you have to, when you get invited into that back room, you have to say the right things because you're basically auditioning to be Shabbos. You're auditioning to be Shabbos Goy, and that's the only way you're going to succeed, because you're not going to succeed any other way. The game is so fucking rigged. Their control is almost absolute, but they're still looking, for just a little bit more control. They're looking at China going, we want what they do. We want what the Chinese are doing to their citizens, we want to do to Americans. And you don't have a good understanding of how to escape that. And that's your fault. That's not my fault. That's your fault and your flaw, and you have to work on it. Where are we at? 1 hour and 9. I'm surprised I got through all this because I thought it was going to take longer. But I'm trying to minimize my monologue here a little bit. My excessive monologuing about our Semitic overlords. But we're going to win this. You're not going to win this. Bitcoin's going to win this. Okay. And what's coming down the road, and I don't know when it's coming down, it's going to be ugly as fuck, and most people are not going to be prepared for it. So, you know, heads up, if you, yeah, whatever, heads up. You know what I mean? I don't know what I can tell you. I don't know what advice I can give you. Here's what the future looks like, particularly Swan Bitcoin. And like I said, this company is, the quality of their productions is super high. This next video, 58 seconds, next video shows you that we're not going to be stopped. We won't be fucking swayed. And the message that we have, people want to hear.
I'm Natalie Brunell, and I'm working on a very special project with my team at Hard Money. We always say in this space that Bitcoin fixes this. Well, what does it fix? I don't think that people appreciate the solution before they understand the problem. So how is money broken? We want to tell those stories from around the world, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear from all walks of life. We want to hear how fiat has in some cases destroyed livelihoods and families and communities and countries. We want to hear the stories of how people's savings have evaporated overnight because of currency debasement. We want to hear the stories of the American dream. And we also want to hear the stories of resilience, people who are overcoming financial crises. Maybe they're still struggling, but they believe that the future will be better. Please, if you have a story or you know someone who does, reach out at hardmoney@swan.com. We want to tell the most compelling narratives, and hopefully people are led to the path of understanding Bitcoin. Thank you so much for watching this video, and share it.
So you got a spokesman like that. You got a pretty blonde, articulate woman who's willing to travel around the world to make videos showing how this magic internet money fixes problems in the real world. Okay, you don't have anyone willing to do that. We do. Okay, you don't have anyone willing to promote that. We do. You don't have anything as slick as what you just saw. You never fucking will, because you're no talent, homosexual white communists who hate blacks and Jews, and nobody gives a fuck. That's why you need to die starving and homeless. And fingers crossed, this happens soon. The intention of Bitcoin is to destroy fiat currency everywhere on the globe. In Argentina, in America, in China, everywhere. Whether you understand that or you don't understand that, whether you think that's possible or you don't think that's possible, you're not the measure of anything. You're not good at fucking making judgments about what's going to succeed or what fails, because you've never had any success, or you've never even had failure because you never fucking tried anything. You never tried to do anything that wasn't already fucking guaranteed. That's the difference between you and people who actually make shit happen. So we got Natalie Brunell, pretty girl, articulate, willing to do what needs to be done to promote our cause, which is the cause of economic freedom. And everyone wants that. Doesn't matter what color they are, doesn't matter if they're young or old, it doesn't matter what country they're in, it doesn't matter what they think their political stripe is, everybody wants that. We have what everybody wants, and we're gonna fucking win. That is why Bitcoin is the apex fucking predator on this fucking planet. Whether or not you see that, again, that's a limitation of your thinking. That's a limitation of your imagination. But with that, we're coming up at 1 hour and 13, actually doing pretty good. I hate this not seeing myself thing, because I know I'm blinking like crazy because my eyes are sticking together from, I don't know, whatever, like pollen, even though at nighttime there's supposed to be no pollen, whatever. And that annoys me. So we went to a lot of places. We showed Ted Cruz as a hero and Ted Cruz as a bum, and, you know, a bunch of other people, you know, again, Andrew Tate, you know, he's not our guy. He's not a good guy. Is he screwing underage girls? I have no fucking idea if that's what they said. Is it true? The world is filled with profoundly flawed individuals. And as human beings, we're all flawed in this way. But you need to overcome that, or people are going to need to overcome that. And when they do, there has to be something on the other end that's workable. And Bitcoin is workable. It works today. It's going to work tomorrow, and it's going to keep working in the future. And and you could be part of it, or you could sit there with your thumb up your ass, waiting for fucking the ghost of Adolf Hitler to come and rescue you from those horrible Semites, from those evil foreskin gobbling, matzah munching demons. So with that, at an hour and 15, we're gonna call it a show. I'm gonna hit the outro music. I'm gonna thank everybody for showing up. Thank you everybody for showing up tonight. Virgil, Doc, Purple Heart, Judas Fly Chai, everyone that's gonna watch in the coming week. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys next week.